This is probably the toughest video I've ever made. NieR Automata is a game with immense personal significance for me, so much so that I have a symbol of the game tattooed on my arm. I've toyed around with making a video like this for a long time. These projects are the result of deconstructing and analyzing individual facets of a particular title that did or did not resonate with me, then compiling those findings into a cohesive product. However, tackling a franchise with themes and concepts as nebulous as NieR's made my traditional process incredibly difficult. I found myself having trouble putting words on a page. Beyond navigating the intentionally obfuscated plot, providing fair and unbiased commentary on this subject was nigh impossible. It is simply a game I have too much sentimental attachment to. If you're familiar with my work, I tend towards providing personalized commentary on design elements I found to be incongruent with the game's themes, narrative, or tone. In order to tackle a game like NieR, I felt the need to dive into its prominent philosophical depictions to qualify any commentary I may have. With this in mind, I unconsciously started devising how this video would take shape. This progress came to a screeching halt when I stumbled upon Michael Saba's video, How NieR Automata Tells the Ultimate Humanist Fable. It was a strange yet not entirely foreign experience for me when gazing upon the product I had envisioned my own work to resemble. What's worse is that Mr. Saba's video was infinitely better than anything I could produce on my own. I may sound a little resentful, but that's far from the case. Please, do watch that video, it is absolutely fantastic. I linked it in the description. However, this left me at an impasse. I felt obliged to continue this project out of passion for the game, yet needed a course correction, the direction of which I was still uncertain. I worried that I might not do justice to this tremendously important game. Overlooking some detail, design, or moment would leave this passion piece permanently incomplete. The prospect of trying to dismantle and explain why this game is so damn good would quicker land me in an insane asylum than I could hope to produce this video. I aired these frustrations to, honestly, whoever would listen, and eventually found a direction that was at least somewhat more coherent. Through this newfound lens, I could really refine and develop a product that is a reflection of what I think and not an objective deconstruction of forthright philosophy references and surface-level design critiques. Though public, this essay is personal. It is a retelling of what I feel to be the most outstanding designs, gameplay sequences, and narrative beats that struck me in just the right way. I will admit this video may not make a lot of sense, but I will do my best to hold your hand through it. It probably goes without saying that I recommend NieR Automata unrequitedly. I believe the game to truly be a masterwork embodying the distinction of a game. I consider NieR Automata to be as close to perfect as can be. It justifies itself more so than any other and uses its characters, world, and mechanics to construct a captivating standalone story whilst adding deeply philosophic meta-commentary of its medium and why we, as players, play. This deeply humanistic story is presented through a gorgeously stylized post-apocalyptic open world, complemented by music by Keiichi Okabe, who somehow brings life to the abstract and complicated emotions present in the many locations and events within. Founded on Platinum Games' refined hack-and-slash gameplay, NieR Automata is a game to be played by everyone. That is my best attempt at providing a spoiler-free recommendation of the game without diving into any of the plot. If you're not convinced, or simply don't care, let me explain why NieR Automata is a game that... Now that the spoiler warning has been set, I'll go through a basic description of NieR's plot. NieR Automata takes place on Earth in the year 11,945 AD. Earth has been abandoned after an alien invasion forced humanity to retreat to the moon. In their place, the alien robots known as machines perpetually clash with humanity's Yorha androids, an elite group of super robots meant to repel the machine hordes. The two factions have been fighting a series of proxy wars, with the game's events occurring in the midst of the 14th iteration. These big numbers are meant to express the longevity of this seemingly endless conflict, but have no real bearing or importance on the overall events of the game. NieR Automata presents its narrative through the use of multiple playthroughs, with each taking the perspective of a different Yorha android, 2B, 9S, and later A2. 2B and 9S are partners, with them sharing a vast majority of the game's events together, only intersecting with A2 on rare occasions. 2B and 9S follow a trail of gradually more absurd and notably sentient behaviors from the believed mindless machines. Together, unraveling the secret that not only are the aliens long since extinct, but likewise is humanity. A notable detail of both the androids and machines is that they are each connected to massive neural networks that allow for their consciousness and memory data to be transferred between hosts on a whim. This functionally makes almost every character we meet immortal. If a machine or android's body becomes too severely damaged, their consciousness will just be transplanted into another body to perpetuate this multi-millennial conflict. A key design element of NieR's gameplay is how we are literally perceiving the world. In most third-person titles, the player takes the role of an omnipotent puppet master wholly divorced from the world itself. How characters behave between predetermined plot points are rarely interpreted as literal events occurring in the game's canon, in large part because if the player would die, the game would just end. In NieR Automata, the perspective in which you see the events on screen is supposedly the literal view the androids see too. Utilizing a computer interface diegetically inserted as a pause menu, you, the player, are granted an unprecedented amount of customization that supposedly all occurs within the game world. You can remove health bars, enemy levels, or even your own OS chip, which will kill the android on the spot, unlocking one of NieR's 26 endings. NieR is far from the first or only game with diegetic user interfaces, but the context in which it provides this perspective complements its themes as a game. Games are often compared to or described as art, which I believe to be a disservice to games. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, games run at 60 frames per second. Within a game, we have an inherently illogical dichotomy to confront. Either we can suspend our disbelief and actively participate within the world, story, and gameplay, or simply don't. The unique way we engage with games as a medium allows for an extra layer of immersion only gated by the player's engagement to that medium. Let's compare how we consume other forms of creative expression. In a movie, the visuals, story, and presentation is provided and played through without any input from the audience. Likewise, in a novel, the author provides the characters and story whilst foregoing the visual component. As the reader, you have no agency over the written events of the plot, but in exchange are given the ability to conjure a guided sense of imagery yourself. In a game, however, nothing happens without you. The player is a foundation of how games function. If a game played itself, that's what we call a movie. I make this distinction to highlight a key shortcoming of other storytelling mediums. No matter how you consume a series like Lord of the Rings, from the beginning Frodo was going to make it to Mordor and succeed in his quest. There is novelty found in exploring how characters react or enact plot devices, though every event is still predetermined and sedimentary. Games have a unique dynamism that allows for what we call emergent narratives to develop. Emergent narratives are stories curated through the interaction between player and game. This creates a personal experience that, given the right criteria, can transcend the pre-written narrative altogether. Following their storytelling predecessors, studios create a predetermined flow of events meant to be engaged with in some way or another before credits roll. There is nothing wrong with this approach, but NieR does something slightly different. In most cases, emergent narrative is left entirely in the realm of the player. It is difficult to create a compelling emergent narrative due to its intrinsic volatility hinging on the player's willingness and capability to connect with a game's message. NieR shoves its message down its players' throats, forcing us to confront the existentialist nightmare that both the cast and us reside in. Let's explore how. NieR Automata is not subtle about its philosophical themes and depictions. There are countless higher quality videos out there explaining in far more detail all of these examples. The terms we'll be returning to frequently are nihilism and existentialism. Nihilism is the rejection of all extrinsic principles, claiming there is no intrinsic meaning to life. Existentialism complements nihilism through its claim that people are free agents capable of making their own moral decisions predicated on personal values rather than an extrinsic moral code. NieR utilizes the unsolvable nature of these concepts to link players to the characters within. That connection, in tandem with enough worthwhile agency, elicits a sense of stakes tied to your choices. Gamifying the concept of existentialism allows for a safe environment to explore the outcomes of events we, as living beings with expiration dates, can never hope to truly solve in our lifetimes. This message is baked into NieR's cyclical nature, providing innumerable ties to life throughout our engagement with games. Let me direct you to the first line of dialogue in NieR Automata.
Everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse? Or some kind of punishment? I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle, and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
I struggle to describe how flawless this opening line is. In 5 short sentences, it introduces the main conflict, hints at its existentialist themes, and allows the player some insight to the main character's dispositions when considering the implications of the statement, all the while remaining a diegetic in-game commentary that has ramifications beyond the screen. This will be a common motif present throughout this video, the mirroring of games and life. From an abstracted point of view, the dilemma these immortal androids have been placed into is identical to our own, with the exception that we need not bear witness to the infinite eternities beyond our lifetimes. We do live in an endless cycle of life and death, acting as chains that link the past to the future until our time runs out and the next chain is forged. The characters of NieR, both android and machine, are synced to almost omnipotent neural networks that functionally provide immortality, making escape from this cycle seemingly impossible. The concept of cyclical experiences can be found even in the game's very structure. The many endings of NieR often require multiple replays of various sections to see them all. NieR's core narrative is predicated on the New Game Plus function, which provides a different perspective on each subsequent playthrough. The pessimistic view NieR takes regarding nihilistic thought sets up a melancholic atmosphere. It may feel as if your minuscule place in the world serves no greater purpose. Much like many of the other schools of thought that NieR brings to their logical conclusions, it conjures an answer to the seemingly unsolvable dilemma it posed at the very start. However, in order to set up this answer properly, I want to really dissect the events that precede these words. That is to say, let's finally take a look at what I believe to be the best ending credit sequence in gaming. All of Yorha has been destroyed. Its facade as the protectors of humanity torn to shreds, leaving no units to carry on that torch. As the credits begin to roll, the pods explain that all history of Yorha will be deleted. The screen then begins to glitch and tear. The pods determine that the personal data of A2, 9S, and 2B are leaking out. Pod 153 asks Pod 042 to continue the deletion protocol. The aptly named Pod 042, sharing the same number as the satirical meaning of life, hesitates and denies this request. 042 appeals to the newly discovered humanity in 153, asking, in spite of the circumstances and project plan, if they had both wished for a different conclusion. After some back and forth discussing the risks in doing so, it asks you, the player, if you wish for the characters to survive. Answering yes rewinds the short-lived credit sequence and starts the final, true ending of NieR Automata. Remember the first line of the game, where 2B declared war on the god that blessed us with this cryptic puzzle. This is where that revenge can be enacted. The player, in the same style as 9S's hacking minigames, is pitted against the credits of the game in a shoot-'em-up bullet hell gauntlet. In order to rescue these characters, you must first tear down the literal and figurative gods of this world. What better to represent an omnipotent creator than the creators themselves? It's so obvious, so simple, yet so very effective. Set to Keiichi Okabe's Weight of the World, starting from synthesized notes, it builds in layers to a full harmonic symphony with the chorus and lyrics switching between English and Japanese. The conflicted yet empowering melody grows in intensity alongside the increasingly difficult SMUP challenges. This section is almost impossible to complete on your own. It can be done, but I don't believe this is the intended method to complete this section. Eventually, you will die, your small character icon only being able to tank 3 hits before dissipating. Death is not the end, however. On a black screen, you'll be prompted with questions pertaining to existence, meaning, or even games themselves. Examples of which are, do you admit there is no meaning to this world, or is it all pointless? These statements galvanize the likely stubborn players who have reached this section to respond with a resounding no. Further stoking the flames of passion, NieR asks, do you think games are silly little things, or do you accept defeat? It feels not only right, but righteous to vehemently stand against these words and fight back against improbable odds. This idea is further bolstered with the encouraging messages left behind by anonymous names in the background. We place value in games, in the experiences they provide. They may not have any measurable value when considering them in a vacuum, but the unique struggles we undergo shape personal stories and memories, valuable on their own merits. The anonymous messages found in these closing credits foster a connection to a greater community. You may not know who these people are, but they are still cheering for you, pushing you to greater heights. Eventually, after enough failures, you will be prompted with a new question, or more accurately, a rescue offer. Answering yes will have you control a swarm of extra ships orbiting around and firing alongside you. The lone vocalist, having repeated the same chorus over and over again, is now accompanied by a choir of backup singers. It's impossible to describe how significant a shift the song's tone takes with this new accompaniment. The lyrics, though simple and repetitive, put emphasis on the words I and we, most of which, aside from the chorus, carry an emotional weight to them, tragic in a sense. However, the singer, when joined by their ensemble, repeats the now uplifting chorus to play through the remainder of this section. I could talk at length about the musical ties to emotional beats throughout NieR in general, but I really wanted to highlight the beautiful composition within this section. Fighting through the rest of this sequence is a fairly straightforward process. However, if you happen to take any damage in these final moments, a message will be displayed noting that a player's data has been lost. Those words alone may not topple the emotional power trip the rest of this scene carries, but lingers in your mind when proceeding to the final section of the game. The screen fades to white, the pods then reiterate those also important opening words, providing an answer to its existential thesis.
Everything that lives is designed to end. They are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. However, life is all about the struggle within this cycle. That is what we believe.
NieR Automata is a game that imitates life through its existentialist and nihilistic lenses. It proposes there is no intrinsic meaning to life, no purpose we are meant to fill, even bastardizing the concept of higher meaning by literally killing the gods each faction serves. NieR takes the stance that existence precedes essence. In simpler terms, we exist prior to having a meaning or purpose. This allows for us, as sentient beings, to construct our own meaning, our own goals, and our own values from what we personally deem important or virtuous. This for us is something we subconsciously do, but is a revelation unto itself when considering the circumstances both the androids and machines find themselves in. I've heard some criticism about NieR Automata's philosophical commentary being on the nose or surface level. I consider this uncomplicated, straightforward approach to its theming wholly intentional. The key distinction between the conscious androids or machines in comparison to the humans they wish to emulate is the idea of an objective purpose. The Yorha androids and machines have programmed orders to follow, unmovable directives these characters look to and sculpt their existences around. When these fundamental pillars of the robot's very beings are removed, it justifiably leaves them reeling from this newfound emptiness. The struggle that caps off the narrative is the delineation between pessimistic and optimistic views of nihilistic existence. Characters battle upon the stances of if there is no purpose, why exist in the first place, versus if there is no purpose, use your agency to sculpt your own. The sentence, life is all about the struggle within this cycle, is how NieR answers this dilemma, intentionally mirroring how we play games themselves. NieR posits that life has no meaning other than what we derive from it. That life is all about failing, learning, and continuing on. Life is a cycle, yet simultaneously, life must be lived. When you consider these ideals in reference to how we engage with games, a pattern seems to emerge. Games have no meaning other than what we derive from them. Games are all about failing, learning, and continuing on. Games are cyclical, yet simultaneously, games must be played. The conclusion of NieR, akin to prior titles in the franchise, allows you to forfeit your save data in order to help another person in the world. You will likely never meet this person, you may even hate them, but we're inclined to help regardless. We have already seen the shape in which our sacrifice takes, helping people out of the impossibly difficult shmup section. That connection to other players, the feeling of unprovoked kindness, is unlike any other. The notion of seeding your work in a game is in line with the message NieR touts. To make the quote-unquote right decision, you must confront and forego the personal significance that your progress has to create a genuine good for another. Games, life, and NieR are all meaningless except for the meaning to which we ascribe to them. Beyond all the personal development and sentimentality NieR elicits from its players and characters, it shows that despite our meaningless existence, we're not alone. Much like life is meant to be shared, games are too. NieR acts as a bridge to connect people through shared experiences and sacrifices, acknowledging that games as a whole are meant to do the same. NieR Automata. What a strange title. Yoko Taro, mimicking his work, intentionally obfuscates and hides answers pertaining to the meanings behind his cryptic messaging. I'm aware NieR, the word, has no confirmed purpose. However, I would like to bring forward a theory of mine I developed through really analyzing the game's messaging, theme, and meta depictions. This is to say that maybe NieR is meant to literally mean near, as in close to. When you consider the second word of the title Automata defined as a moving mechanical device made in imitation of a human being, the name NieR Automata carries a new meaning. The separation intrinsic with the word NieR describes the core struggle of the androids and machines. They are mechanical devices imitating human beings, yet they can only get so close. NieR Automata is about finding meaning in a meaningless world. Imitating a race long since extinct is a fruitless plight. Not because the robots cannot reach an imitation, rather they are their own beings. The term automata smuggles the concept that mechanical devices are not human, while NieR challenges this premise. Life is more than emulating humanity. These machines are alive, they have consciousness. They are near to automata, whilst simultaneously being eons away. The reason is simple. They are, in fact, already alive. That may be a stretch, but the idea resonates through all the other titles in the series. NieR Replicant, or close to an exact replica of a human. NieR Gestalt, close to an organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of its parts. NieR Reincarnation, close to the rebirth of a soul in a new body. All these titles use their second word as the premise for their stories, yet set a clear exception for the characters to reject the defined term. I won't go into specifics in this video, however, if you're already familiar with these games, this abstraction holds water. Returning to automata, a commonly utilized device embedded within the androids are these objects known as black boxes. These volatile pieces of tech, capable of leveling cities, are what gives the Yorha androids consciousness. The term black box is also utilized in modern-day artificial intelligence. A black box is an invisible set of inputs and outputs AI develops on its own, with no parsable meaning. Ever wonder how an AI can generate some sort of end product? Well, many developers do too. The actions that happen within a black box are impenetrable, but every conscious android has one. These components are the android's hearts, and much like our own, they are fragile, unpredictable, and fundamentally impossible to understand. Players are the incomprehensible set of inputs and outputs found within these black boxes. Players are that unknown, uncontrollable variable, impenetrable even to the developers. I think I've reached my mental limit. NieR is a game that is arbitrary for the sake of being arbitrary whilst reveling in that arbitrariness. You wouldn't be wrong to claim that all this meaning I've pumped into this game is untrue, unintentional, or unexpected. Yet, that seems to be the point. Life has no meaning other than what we derive from it, and NieR is the same. I don't think it's possible to truly dissect every mechanic, line of dialogue, set piece, music track, or any of the imperceptibly small design flourishes because of that all-encompassing arbitrariness. The point that there isn't a point is the point, if that makes any sense at all. You see what I mean by reaching my mental limit? It's about time I wrap this up. NieR Automata is my favorite game. The story it tells transcends the limits of all other mediums, leaning into a player-centric experience only able to exist as a game. NieR is designed to elicit emotion and self-reflection in the player being a key part of the greater whole, as without them there is no game to be played, no experience to be had. I tattooed a picture of Emil, an iconic character in the NieR franchise, on my arm as a reminder of how games can impact people. I will look to NieR as a bar to reach when creating meaningful games in the future. It is my favorite game purely because it doesn't aspire to be more than that. NieR Automata is a game, what I believe to be the ultimate form of expression. Why make a game trying to be anything else when you can simply make a game that is proud to be one? NieR Automata is a game that... I tried for hours, days, possibly months to try and end this sentence. In my opinion, what NieR is so far beyond words it's pointless to even try. Perhaps that's because of my limits as an author, or my inability to really determine what this game does so right. NieR's meaning is solely what you believe it to be. Any game, story, or experience we consume has an innate emergent significance unique to ourselves. How we engage with games will differ, so there will never be a correct answer that can conclude the aforementioned sentence. All I know is that NieR Automata is a game, and that it means something more than I can explain. I hope that made some sense. Thank you so much for watching. It didn't take almost 2 years for this one to come out because of the overwhelming support on my previous video. Over 30,000 views. That's pretty insane. My release schedule is admittedly sparse, so if you want to see when I post another video, you can subscribe to the channel. It's always appreciated. If you found my almost deranged rambling about a game that paradoxically does and doesn't matter entertaining, feel free to give this video a like. If you despised it and hope I trip and fall, feel free to dislike it. Either way, I hope the rest of your day is fantastic, and I'll be back with another video eventually. Thanks again.